Hi, my name's Christopher. Welcome to my house. Wanted to introduce you to something kind of fun and new. We're kind of like as we sort of always do. We've decided we're just going to change everything that we do and come up with something sort of brand new and fun because it seems like the thing that seems like a good idea at the time. So we've decided that we're going to change a little bit about the way that we do our releases. We're going to actually try to bring these more straight to you. And more importantly, I think we're going to try and tell you a little bit more about the wine in a bit more of a personal voice, I guess. So I wanted to sort of start out with thanking you guys for all your support and for kind of allowing us to continue down this path of craziness as we try to really work to sort of define what the Finger Lakes is. As we try to push the Finger Lakes, as we try to sort of get the world, I think, to hopefully accept the potential that we believe is here. So thank you for that. Thank you for the support, and thanks for letting us do it. So as we move forward, the intention is to try and get a little bit more personal and tell you a little bit more about sort of the wines that we're bringing to you directly. And so ultimately, we kind of break it down into two sort of big groups. We've got what we sort of consider our core products. So the things that that the winery I think focuses around that are our benchmarks or our standards, if you will. Things like Pinot Noir, Cabernet Franc, Syrah, Red Table Wine, our Riesling, our Chardonnay are really kind of the things that for us are really kind of at the core of what we do. Outside of that, we have sort of what we call our kind of workshop wines, if you will, or our experimental wines. And they're these things that we make in tiny, tiny little quantities. They're little experiments, be it different lots, different plots, different grape varieties, different winemaking techniques, so that as we kind of move towards our vision of continuing to try and not only kind of define, but also expand what's possible here in the Finger Lakes, or at least the perception of what's possible. I guess what's possible is possible, whether people perceive it or not. But ultimately, it's really about trying to get people to understand that we have a whole lot of potential here to do a whole lot of different things. So we make these little teeny tiny one-off quantities of things. And the goal is that we've got a couple of fun workshop wines coming for you this year, and we've got some really really killer, just smokingly good core wines. Ultimately, what I think are probably some of the best vintages I've seen yet. So, when we start out with the core wines, we've got two 2014s coming your way. We're going to start out with 2014 Riesling. Kind of a fun little story. In 2014 was the year that we decided we were done making Riesling. Decided that though, while it was really what maybe brought me back here from Germany, it was a thing that maybe that I personally am super passionate about. I think Riesling is probably my favorite grape in the world. Um, it ultimately wasn't really matching our mission. It really wasn't kind of helping push forward what we wanted to do, which was change the way that people perceive the Finger Lakes. It was to add to the picture, not compete with the current picture. So while I love making Riesling here, I think it was time for us to take a break and really focus on some of these other things. So 2014 was the last year we decided that we would make Riesling, and we're really excited to bring this your way. We also have 2014 Cabernet Franc, a wine that I've been really, really excited to release for a while. For me, it's a little bit more of a return to kind of the 2012 Cab Franc and the 2010 Cab Franc Reserve. Really just stunningly well structured. Wine that's got some pleasure to it now, but ultimately, really, for me, this wine is about its future. This is the kind of style that we're driving for when in sort of the hopes that someday 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the line, people are going to open these wines and just be blown away by how well they've developed. Much like when I go back and taste, the old Olga Rafaux or old Napa Cab and things like that. Like, that's sort of what we're trying to make, and I think that this wine really fits into that mold. Really beautiful vintage for it. And then we've got a new kind of something new that's not new for us. Well, everything else in our core range is all about varietal. It's all about specificity. It's all about really trying to take that variety and find out what it tastes like here in the Finger Lakes, but ultimately really trying to hone in on that varietal identity in 2010, we decided that we really wanted to do something that took variety out of the picture as well. And so we decided to sort of focus on this flagship idea that we had to make kind of a, not to misappropriate the term meritage, but to basically create like a flagship blend for our winery. So we wanted to make something that instead of representing variety in place, represented place and time essentially, and took variety out of the picture. So while we really hone in on varietal specificity and varietal character in most of our wines, ultimately in this kind of flagship wine, we wanted to do the opposite. We wanted to take varietal characteristic not out, but we wanted to take the focus away from it. And we wanted to put the focus squarely on place and time, squarely on place and vintage. So in 2010, in as rebellious of a way as possible, I decided to call this Red Table Wine. I liked it. Apparently nobody else did. And that's fine. So flash forward a few years, and we have decided that the new release will no longer be called Red Table Wine, and we have decided that we're going to call this the Element. So I'm really excited to bring forth the 2013 Element for you guys. Ultimately, the idea is that we've taken a couple of different grape varieties, just like the 2012 Red Table Wine. This is based on Syrah and Cab Franc, with a couple of little additions here and there of other things. But ultimately, it's not just about kind of that focus. It's also about its élevage, its raising, and how we treat this wine. And this wine is always meant to see a little bit more time for us. So the idea is kind of riffing off of this idea of Rioja Gran Reserva to produce a wine that we put a little bit more élevage time into, a little bit more time in barrel, a little bit more time in bottle, and ultimately really bring out and release only when it's really starting to maybe hit that kind of plateau. It's just starting to kind of show some signs of development. And that's really the goal with this wine, and I'm really excited about where it is right now. I've also been really jazzed about tasting the 2012s lately because they've been really singing. I think the wine shows a little bit more maturity on release, but also, again, has sort of the potential for a really long time ahead of it. So... And then the last kind of fun thing that we've got coming your way is 2016 Blaufränkisch. This is, while the first three wines were really in our core series, this 2013 Blaufränkisch lives in kind of our workshop series. Something we made in 2013, then we took a year off of. We made again in 15 and again in 16. And this will, for now, be the last release of this. This will be the last vintage that we make Blaufränkisch for a while. So it's a grape variety that has got a lot of attention from Austria lately, though ultimately it's originally from Hungary. When it came to the U.S., it came through the town of Lemberg, Germany, and when it arrived here, it became known as Lemberger. So you'll hear it referred to as Lemberger around the Finger Lakes. You also may remember when we used to refer to it as Lemberger. And you'll see it referred to in various other countries as that as well. But ultimately, Blaufränkisch is not only probably a more authentic name, it's definitely a smarter name. So we decided after trying to get people to not call this Limburger, that we would finally give in to the pressure and call it Blaufränkisch. So the 13 in the Lemberger is the same grape, actually from the same vineyard, different parcel and different vine ages, but the same vineyard as the 15 Blaufränkisch and the 16 Blaufränkisch. But the 13 was a wine that when we released, it was just like so aromatic, it was so perfumed, it was so floral, so delicate. The 15 was very different. It was much more structured and big and angular and grippy, more dark fruit and spice and pepper and things like that. The 16 for me is really kind of a throwback in style to this 13. It's much more light, delicate, aromatically like floral, violet, rose, things like that. Really, really fine, beautiful aromatics. So unfortunately, there isn't a whole lot of it, but we wanted to make sure that we got you some. So that's what's coming your way. Hope you enjoyed our first little kind of wine chat as part of our release. And once again, thank you so much for all the support. It's just absolutely not possible to do without you guys. Cheers. By the way, I also forgot to tell you, I got some other fun stuff coming your way. So, as I was mentioning, this 13 is, for me, much more similar in style to the 16. So, I figured I'd throw in one of those for you guys so that you can just sort of come back and compare and contrast the two side by side. Hopefully, you still have a little bit of the 15 left, but this in and of itself should be a really fun little tasting. And because we like to taste things with a little bit more maturity, I thought that contrasting this like super crispy, crunchy 14 Riesling with a little bit more textural, a little bit more round, a little bit more viscous style from 2010 would be fun. So I've got some of that in there, and then, well, I mean, it's winter, so you need magnums. So we've got a Magnum of 2014 Cab Franc coming your way as well. Just for throwing in the cellar or maybe opening with friends. Whatever. That's it. Thanks. Bye.